Hello everybody, this is Sakne and welcome back to Let's Play Sword of the Stars. So this episode we're going to take a look at the basic interface and all the buttons you're going to have to use during the game. So this is your star map, this is your basic 3D controls, hold right mouse, unit orbit, well whatever, you'll play through the tutorials and they'll teach you all of that. Just some keyboard shortcuts that are really useful to speed things up. So R brings up the research. You can zoom out and orbit around here to take a look. We'll look at this research at the tech tree in more detail later on. So hit R again to hide it. E brings up the, I guess we'll call it Empire screen, and all these different tabs. And if you hit E, it'll just bring you back to whatever tab you were using before. So we'll use this a lot as our empire grows. D is where we are going to design our ships, and of course we'll come back to here. And we'll spend a lot of time in here. It's a lot of fun. B will build your ships. It looks just like the design, but it's in green. So this well, this depends on which system you have selected, of course. That's where it's going to build the ships. That's pretty much it. Another two important, well, there are some hotkeys, but Control T is a faster way to end the turn. And I will toggle, will select the next idle fleet that you have. So for example, if we split up these, just by dragging and dropping these three ships, as I hit I, it cycles between the two. So typically on a turn, you're going to hit I until you've assigned, given orders to all your idle fleets that you wanted to, check your research, make sure everything's going well, and maybe do something in the Empire screen and whatnot. Regardless of the race that you're playing, a few things you're going to want to do on your first turn. First of all, look at your home planets. So, Ipriskin is our home world. Let's just take a look at the stats and each of the home world has. So, the size of the planet is size 10. Only home worlds have size 10. The best you'll find outside of your home world and those of your of the other empires is size 9. So, size of the planet just determines how much population it can handle. The population impacts mainly the economy that planet can generate, and to a smaller extent, how much it can produce. The resources is kind of the amount of whatever, or is a richness of that system. 5,000 you can think of as the average. More is better. This will have a big impact on how fast ships can be produced here. So you can have a high resource system, which won't bring you a lot of money, but it'll be great for building ships. The infrastructure is something that gets built as your world is developed. Only the home world can reach this special 200 mark, because its population can reach this special 2 billion mark. Normally this would max out at 1 billion. Anyways, the infrastructure grows, and it determines. Well, I'm not going to go into all the details of the formula, but more is better. Let's just keep it at that. Industrial output is kind of the result of. Well, let's just say industrial output tells you how fast you can build your ships. So the more resources you have, the higher this will be. But this also depends a bit on the population and other things. And finally, the income is income. It's exactly what you think it is. So the way the economy works is each planet generates, its own income and industrial output. If the industrial output isn't being used to build anything, then it goes into the sort of general pool of money. And then at the top here, you decide how much of that goes to research and how much of that just goes to accumulating money. So you're going to need money to build ships. So that's basically the trade-off that you have here. Now each planet here has a slider, construction and trade. We don't have the technology for trade yet, but eventually you're going to want to set some planets to have to devote a certain amount of their energy towards trading, which will generate additional revenue, but that'll mean that there's less, when they try to build ships, it's going to take less time. But at first, you want to slide this down to construction. So that's the first thing that you want to do when you start your new game. Take your home world, slide it all the way to construction. This overharvest slider allows you to deplete the resources of your planet in order to sort of burn and get an extra boost in production. This is useful in emergencies, but is generally not a good idea because when this gets depleted, then it just, over the long term, is going to hurt your ability to produce things. So okay, so we've set our construction to full. Now let's set our first research goal. So let's talk about the tech tree. There are different categories in the tech tree. I'll go over them quickly. Power technology defines your ship engines, and this also defines kind of the tech tier that we're in. So we start the game in the fission era, eventually we'll move to fusion era, and eventually we'll move to antimatter. As you can see, if I was to try to research fusion now, it would take 100 turns, which is kind of ridiculous. Actually, so the number of turns depends on how much, where this slider is set here. So if I slid it all the way to research, it would actually take 41 turns. But that would be a kind of silly way to start. So at each level, but we can start, by making better fission engines. Okay, so that's the engines. Next we have torpedo weapons, which are just one kind of weapon. Here we have the energy weapons. These are our lasers and pew-pew. Here are the ballistic weapons, which are space guns, basically. Okay, FTL communications. This is CCC, or C3. So command, control, and communications, I guess, whatever it is. So these technologies allow you to field more ships in battle, which is very important. And it also is all the tech for all your scanners and sensors and things like that. This is also where we'll have trade eventually. Okay, xenotech is the technology you'll need to talk to other races if you want to engage in diplomacy. We haven't met anybody, so we don't have anything really to research other than our own branch for our race. So as you meet people, this will fill up. Industrial is a very important tech tree. Starts with only one. But this will determine many things. Among other things, it will determine what size of ship you can build. So right now we can only build destroyers, which are tiny little ships. Eventually we'll be able to graduate to cruisers and then dreadnoughts. And there are all sorts of other fun technologies in here too, which boost your economy. Biological is mainly concerned with how quickly you terraform planets and how quickly your population grows. There are also biological weapons that you can use to attack other empires with. Drone is, if you remember, the Moragi start with, they're going to start with a few technologies in here. Drones are just a special kind of weapon, but the first few techs in this tree are very good for your economy, so we'll be getting those. Okay, star drives is a short little branch, and basically it goes along with the power technology. Now for the different races, this technology is going to reflect a new and improved version of your warp drive. For the Hivers, it's going to increase our gate technology, and I'll talk about specifically how that works in a minute. Warhead weapons, these are just another kind of weapon, missiles basically, and mines. And then finally shield technologies, which are sort of your defensive things you could put on your ships, well obviously, but beyond shields there's specific defenses for projectile weapons and energy weapons and all that. So that's a brief overlook of the tech tree. The way it works is there are many techs, and each time you play the game, you basically roll the dice, and it determines, as you progress through the tech tree, which techs you have access to. So for example, there is in fact a technology here that is missing called a light emitter, which is a special kind of energy weapon. But as the Hivers, since we're bad at tech and particularly bad at energy weapons, we're just not clever enough to have figured out how to access that technology. So we don't have it this game. That doesn't mean we can't get it. We might be able to salvage it from another empire, but for now we can't research it. However, here we did get the disruptor technology, which was not guaranteed. But there are other torpedo weapons, like proton torpedoes, I think it's possible to start the game with, which we didn't get. So, if you take a look, there are pictures on the internet that you can find with the whole tech tree. We might only discover half of it this game. And the Hivers in particular are not good at discovering, the complete tech tree. But that's okay. We'll make do without. Okay, so how are we going to start? Well, I'll justify this a bit later, but actually let's take a look at, just want to take a look here. So if you want to measure the distance between two stars, you just hold and drag your left mouse button. So this is 5.6, 8.8, 10.9. Okay, so we're going to research first Waldo units. Double click here. So this is actually a great starting technology because it boosts industrial output, which is great for the economy, reduces the cost of building ships, and it gives us a new ship section. So we'll get into that in just a second. But first, research. Okay, done. So now researching this should take about 3 turns. Now it actually isn't guaranteed to take 3 turns. We can overshoot or undershoot, but statistically, on average, it should take 3 turns. Okay, so you started your game, you brought your slider down to construction, you set your first research goal, which honestly for any race, Waldo units is a great starting technology. Now you want to explore the world around you. Now since we're Hivers, remember, it takes forever for us to get where we want to go. So here I'm hitting the M key for move. I took my first gate and notice that I can't even get to the closest star, right? It shows green and then red. That's because I'm going to run out of fuel, because the kind of engine that I have on here only goes 5, I don't know what the units are in this game. We'll call them parsecs just because, but maybe it's light years. Okay, we'll call them light years. So I can only move 5 light years away, and the closest star is 5.5. So I could either research a better engine, one of these 2 choices, which we will do soon, which would mean that I could design a new gate ship which would travel even further, or what I could do is build a tanker which will increase the range of my existing ships. So let's go to build. I've got 3 gates and I want to send them in 3 different places, so we're going to build 3 tankers. So one of the basic ship designs that you have is already the tanker. What's important here is how much does it cost? It costs 22,000 to build. And if you'll remember, I have 50,000 to start the game. So if I queue up 3 of these, I go in the red. That's okay. We'll do a bit of deficit spending and pay it back next turn quickly. The construction cost is how much industrial output it's going to take. So remember when at first we moved the slider, if I kept it in the middle, I would only be devoting, okay, well, actually it doesn't apply in this case, but see, if this slider is too far over here, then just to build 3 destroyers, it's going to take 2 turns, which is pretty pathetic for a homeworld. By sliding it all the way to construction, then I am devoting more resources to building stuff. Okay, now I'm going to be short $16,000 next turn, and if that happens, then a part of my budget is going to be devoted to paying off basically interest on my debt, which is bad, which I don't want. But since I want to get exploring right away, I'm going to deficit spend on my first turn. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a chunk of my pie to money making so that I make at least 16,000, so I'll end up in the positive at the end of next turn. If I want to calculate it exactly, I go to E, colonies and budget, and here I can make sure that my projected treasury is in the positive, but just so I spend as much as possible on research. Okay, so we're going to build our first 3 tankers for next turn. We set our research rate, and we're good to go. So let's end our turn. Control T gives you a countdown so that if you realize you forgot something, you can hit Control T again and fix it, but we don't want to do that. Alright, turn 2. So you notice this ticker at the bottom is a recap of what happened during your turn. So we just have ships that are constructed. So what we want to do is rearrange these fleets. I'm going to give 1 tanker to each of these fleets. So now if I hit I, I'm just alternating between the 3. Okay, so let's send our ships out to our neighboring star systems. So let's send 1 here, let's send 1 here, and we'll send 1 here. Okay, so I want to, as quickly as possible, although of course that's a bit of a joke with the Hiveverse, but I want to send gates to everywhere within my cluster. So let's talk about the gate technology and how it works quickly. Notice this icon here, this gate, this is a symbol for the gate, and it says 3. So I have 1 gate deployed. This icon here shows that it's a gate. So there's a gate deployed at my homeworld, and at this point in the game, each gate gives me 3 gate traffic capacity. If I want to move fleets, depending how many ships there are, it's going to take more and more capacity. So it's important to expand your gate network so that you can move large fleets around. Now, I could build more gates, more of these primitive gate and tankers, and send them off. But, you know, I've got to spend an extra 22,000 for each combo because of the tankers, because I have really inefficient engines. So what I'm going to do instead for this game is we're going to research, after we're done with the Waldo units, we're going to research better engines, and then hopefully those will be gate ships that can make it directly on their own. So I happen to know that you can research in the fission era gate ships or fission ships that will travel 13 units without needing a tanker. So with 13, we'll be able to cover a lot of these first systems. And of course, you know, let's see, this guy's going to make it in 12 turns. So in 12 turns, we'll have deployed a gate here, and then we'll be able to move further and further into our little cluster here. Okay, so I'm going to end this video here, and we'll pick it up in the next episode. See you shortly.